So as part of our review today for chapter 13, I'm asking you to watch this video and work on this worksheet with me. This is a very significant one, statistically significant worksheet that will be very important for your success on the test. And I want to go through a problem very clearly and carefully with you. I also believe something like this is very probable for your AP exam. So make sure you have this worksheet printed or handy. You're going to need to answer this question, testing a claim about a difference in proportions now. Okay, this is a very interesting question. It's very interesting, but it's talking about the long-term effects of preschool programs for poor children. So they designed an experiment and they recruited 123 children who had never attended preschool from low-income families. This was in Michigan. And then they randomly assigned 62 to attend preschool that was paid for by the study. And then the other 61 were to be the control group and not go to preschool. So it just says here, one of the response variables that they looked at was their need then for social services later on in life as adults. So in the past 10 years, 38 children that were in the preschool group and 49 in the control group have needed social services. So the question here is, does this study provide convincing, statistically significant evidence that preschool reduces the later need for social services? So it's asking you to carry out the appropriate test to answer this question. I look at this and I have two populations, went to preschool, didn't go to preschool, and I have proportions given to me, the number out of the children, right? So I'm doing a two sample proportion z-test. You may use your calculator on this, but put down all of the parts: state, plan, do, conclude, sketch. And in the do, if you use your calculator, do input, output, like we've talked about, okay? And then I'll come back and take a look at it with you. Okay. Start taking a look at some of this. I calculated my p hat 1 and p hat 2 first off to get those values. I also know I'm going to have to calculate p hat c, which you'll see I did this down here in the do part, because we have to use p hat c in a significance test. You actually need that before you do your plan, so make sure to calculate that. If you do it on your calculator, sometimes it doesn't say that it's the p hat c. They leave it blank, but look at your calculator and see which number corresponded with this to see how your coding is in the calculator. All right, so we've got our ho and our ha here, that the difference is 0. We want that. In order to get to our question, we're trying to see if preschool reduces the need for social services. So if I do P1 minus P2, I'm going to want that to be less than 0, okay? Because that would be that the second group took more. There was more. It was a higher percentage there, okay? So there you have our proportion and our population, our parameter, population in the state, the conditions for both. This one, I'm not so sure that was SRS because it says they recruited them. So either way you wrote that would be interesting. You could have written proceed with caution, and I probably would also, okay? Because it doesn't say in here, except for the fact that they randomly assigned them to the experiment group. So that's what gives us at least random assignment, okay? And then you're using that N1 time and the p hat C's and 2 p hat C's. All of those are greater than 5. Your 10N option for independence. And then remembering to say they're independent from each other. Okay. Now hopefully you got all those parts in. Just a quick review there. I did the do in by hand to show the whole long formula and filling it all in using p hat C, and the p-value that I got was 0.0102. If you ran a 2-prop Z test, then you got the same Z value, but of course your p-value was a little bit more exact to your point going into the decimals, okay? So since our p-value is less than 0.05, we do have statistically significant evidence to reject HO and say that it's likely the true proportion of students needing social services is less, the ones with preschool is less than the proportion of students in the control group. So then your sketch, your difference is 0. Our SE is this formula down here that you still have to calculate, okay? Or using P hat C there. And then mark off that 0.0, I guess I have an 8 there, until you get to your P1 minus P2, which was a negative 0.1904 out here. And then your p-value at the end being rather small. Okay. All right, we're going to go back to now the back of the worksheet, which is using a computer program to tell you Minitab, which again, you probably will be seeing stuff like this on the AP test since we're online this year. The Minitab gives a 95% confidence interval data there. And so what I'd like you to do now is to interpret that interval in context. It's still the same situation, these preschool students that are now adults, and then explain what additional information this confidence interval provides for our testing that we just did, and then show how that interval was calculated. So now this is very well something that could be on the AP test. So you do need to know how to do the formulas, can't just rely totally on the computer. So I'd like for you to answer the back of this worksheet and then come back and check with me. All right. So as I looked at the back of this worksheet, I see that this right here was the control group, and this is the group that went to preschool. They had them backwards from how I did them in my problem, of course. So then when I looked at this, we are 95% confidence that 3.3 to 34.7% more adults need social services from the control group than those who attended preschool. Okay. So our true proportion difference is between those two percentages. So what does this do? What does this provide for us? Remember, this is a good piece of information because in our significance test, we saw that it appeared we have evidence that the students that received preschool had less social services as an adults. Well, how much less? And this tells us the 3 to 34%. Now, that's a wide range. That is quite wide. It is a 95% CI, and it couldn't get much tighter than that. So we're confident it's in there somewhere. So it could be from very little difference to almost a third different. Now, how was that interval calculated? Well, here's everything put into the formula, including our p hat C's. I'm sorry, p hat 1s, p hat 2s. Remember, p hat C is not used for intervals. P hat C is only used for significance testing. So I put that here. Remember, that's what should have been here is your p hat 1, p hat 2, and 1 minus p hat 1 and minus p hat 2. And then we get this confidence interval, which is what the Minitab gave us, just ours is rounded up. Okay, great. So now you've had a chance to practice your significance testing and a confidence interval for proportions. As you practice and review for tomorrow's test, please be sure to go through the entire review and remember what to do for 2 sample means and 2 sample proportions. Both of these things are being covered. All right, let me know if you have questions, email me, or join us with the video conference.